Hello everyone and welcome back to ASM Card. Today we're taking a look at one of my collection binders for Magic. So the cards in here are not necessarily random, but they're not exactly for trade either. So I'm gonna open this up. So originally this was designed to be like a foil binder, but I moved away from that because I just had too many foils, which we can go over at a later date. But most of this tends to be like complete collections or secret layers. So, for example, we have the 5 original Praetors: Elishnorn, Gingitaxius, Shieldred, Orobrask, and Vorinclex in their Phyrexian language. It's kind of hard to see the language itself on there. And then we have the SCG Sheldon Menery token that is actually signed by Sheldon. I got to meet him. It was SCG Con Summer. It's got the number on there. I think it was like 2019. And unfortunately, he has since passed away. So this is a very nice card that I like to keep in a very good condition. We've got Raph, which again, just kind of a random card. I used to have this as my commander for one of my very first commander decks, and it's a foil that I pulled out of a pack at the time, and I met the artist, so I had the artist sign it. And then we have a foil of Lena, Selfless Champion, which my wife's name is Lena, so I wanted to make sure that, of course, she gets her own card. Next up, we've got the Walking Dead Secret Lair, which I know is very controversial, but I am a big fan of The Walking Dead. Less so the TV show, more the comics, but it's still cool nonetheless. So, this was the first Universes Beyond set, and so at the time, I know people were very upset, but since then, I have, just become a big fan in general. So we've got the Walker tokens here, and then there's additional Walker tokens and a treasure token. This next page, I'm gonna move this over a little bit because I realized the glare is kind of getting to it. So this next page doesn't look like it has a lot in common. They're all kind of random cards. Confront the Past, Cruel Reality, Cryptic Cruiser, Duskmantle Operative, Fall of the Titans, Forerunner of Slaughter, Gruesome Slaughter, Incendiary Flow, and Lead by Example. So one of the nice things about this page, and the fact that it looks relatively unassuming, and yes, all of the cards are in foil. We're actually going to see some more in just a second. But my favorite Planeswalker of all time is Gideon. I actually have an entire deck dedicated just to Gideon. And because Gideon has always been mono white, these are cards that reference Gideon in some way, but I am unable to play them in the deck. So Confront the Past has Gideon back here in the art. Cruel Reality, same thing, as well as in the flavor text. Cryptic Cruiser is a quote from Kiora to Gideon. Once again, Gideon, flavor text, Gideon, flavor text, Gideon, the flavor text, flavor text, flavor text, flavor text, and also art for Lead by Example. And then there are some additional cards that also fit that theme. So we have Liliana's Elite, which is a statement being made to Gideon. Martial Glory, again, flavor text. Moav Kozilek, flavor text. Merciless Eviction is also flavor text. Unfortunately, the version that I have does not have that. So I will have to upgrade that version. The Ondu Champion, flavor text. Bladed Crusher, flavor text. Pledge of Unity is both flavor text and art. So he is right there in itself. Unity of purpose, flavor text, unlikely aid, both flavor text and then also riding Rakdos, which is just badass. Woodland Wanderer, flavor text, Gideon of the Trials for very obvious reasons. And this is one of the San Diego Comic-Con promo versions, but there were actually two versions of this specific Planeswalker card, so the other version is in my Gideon deck. Collective Effort and Terranika here are both just regular foils that could be in the Gideon deck, but I met the artist Eric Deschamps and was able to actually get artist proofs of these two cards to put into the Gideon deck. The next section are some more Secret Lair. These ones are lands. These are all the Bob Ross lands. So I had actually ordered the non-foil version of the Bob Ross Secret Lair lands, which notably are also in here. Right here. And they had actually messed up and sent me the foil ones. So I reached out and they basically said, keep the foil ones, we will send you the non-foil as a backup. So I wound up getting both by accident, which is kind of cool. I don't play any of them because they're all just single basics. And then I have a bunch of lands that I think are just relatively cool. So these are all either promos or full art foils. I've stopped putting full art foils in the binder because there's just so many of them. But we have the Rebecca Kay and Elena Danner promo lands. These ones just straight up came out of a promo pack that it's kind of but we have some islands as well. So the very fancy full art ones that are foiled, what are these, unstable? These ones are not foil, unfortunately. And then we have Simic and Izzet basic lands, as well as Dimir and some other promos. And then Swamps, once again, same thing. I did get a Phyrexian Language Swamp, which I think is super sweet. And then some other promos and guild lands. We also threw the Ixalan one in here because I just think this is super cool. I really like this basic land. Mountains, same thing. We also have some of the Chandra Flame lands. And then, as you may be able to tell, I have a lot. And then, as you may be able to tell, I have a lot of Rebecca Kay basic lands. I played a lot of Standard at this time. This was the Standard Showdown promo, and I played at a store that was not prepared for mono red, and so I played mono red, and every time I got one of the mountains I would put it in the mono red deck. And I don't really play too much Standard anymore, so they just kind of adorn the binder. Forests, again, kind of the same thing, just some promos and some guild lands. And then we get to kind of the weird section of the binder, so you can tell that there's a lot of promos, both pre-release promos and some stained glass planeswalkers. These are all still in the sealed pack that they come in, because I either didn't play them in pre-release or I chose not to open them when I got the Secret Lair. And so they are all still sealed. I don't really have another way to store them. And there's some more on the back as well. And some other Secret Lair cards, Brainstorm, Crash Through, Ornithopter. The odd one out here is the Thimbershawd, which it's very hard to tell on camera, but it's actually still in the packaging, but it is crimped at the bottom. That feels relevant, so I am hanging on to that for the future, I suppose. Over here we have a Focus Diamond, which is a proxy Mox Diamond that was was illustrated and designed by a friend of mine. It's MTG3 over on Twitch and YouTube, so go check him out if you're interested in proxies. I know he's been working on his own comic book with his own original character, which is this character here. We also have a full art foil Generous Gift because my wife's favorite card in the entire game is Generous Gift. She thinks it's hilarious to just give people an elephant. So we've got one of those. Next up is the Liliana Secret Lair. So it came with the stained glass Dreadhorde General, and then each of her demons, so Razaketh, Belzenlock, Grizzlebrand, and Kothafed, and then her contract as well. I don't really have much of a use for most of these cards. I tend to play Commander mostly, and I'm not big on playing black or green. Honestly, I tend to steer clear of those colors. Next up is, once again, a Secret Lair. I think this one was a bunch of Innistrad cards, but in like movie posters, so like Grafdigger's Cage, Beast Within, Blasphemous Act, Dismember, Rise of the Dark Realms, Liliana Death's Majesty, and Gravecrawler. And then we get to the final page. I know that there's more technical pages, but this is the last one that has anything on it. And these are the original Elder Dragons. There was a Secret Lair, again, for this that I decided to pick up because Arcades Sabbath here was actually my very first legendary card when I was a kid. And, you know, the white border from Chronicles, and I still have it. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, I gotta get that Arcades Sabbath, and if I'm getting Arcades, I may as well get the rest of them, just because they're so cool. They're in that Dominaria frame. So I really got this for the Arcades, even though I think the only one that's worth anything is Nicol Bolas. But very cool nonetheless. I'm very happy to have just kind of this complete collection of the Elder Dragons. And like I said, that brings us to the end of our binder. There are some unfilled pages, so if you have any suggestions for cards and or collections of things that could fill the rest of this binder, please let me know. But other than that, thank you all for joining me on this little journey. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.